Hey guys, welcome to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Today I have my friend Courtney Love Gavin on here as a guest, and we're talking all things public relations for your online business. This is an awesome interview. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth McCravey, and you're listening to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Each week, I'll bring you workshop-style trainings that teach you how to stand out online, design success from the inside out, and create a breakthrough business. It's time to turn viewers into raving fans and design the business and life of your dreams. I'm so excited you're here. All right, you guys, I'm so excited for this episode. I'm excited for you to hear from my friend, Courtney Love Gavin, today. She provides so much value in this interview, and we're talking about how you can boost your PR in as little as 10 minutes a day. And we also dive into other things like pitching yourself to be on podcasts, SEO strategies as that relates to PR. It's really interesting. We talk about that. Press kits, website design, and so many other things. So it's a really rock solid interview. And you guys, I'm also going to be using these strategies that Courtney teaches alongside all of you. Like, she brings so much value, and this is stuff all of us can use in our businesses. So I want to introduce you guys to Courtney before I play the interview, because on this episode, we don't really do like the whole like long intro thing or anything like that. We just get straight into her teaching. But I do want you to know who Courtney is and why she has so much credibility to be teaching us this. So Courtney is an award-winning PR professional, and she worked in the corporate PR world for 17 years before launching her creative business and transitioning to working with female entrepreneurs on their PR. And also, side note, Courtney looks like she's literally in her early 20s. So 17 years in PR. Felt so crazy when she told me that. I'm like, wait, what? You look like you're in your 20s. So anyway, Courtney's had a lot of experience in PR, and she's the creator of Who's That Housewife, which is like a heads up style. It's actually like a physical game though for Real Housewives fans. We talk about that in the show. It's really cool. And in addition to that, Courtney teaches her clients how to rapidly create visibility that builds trusted, sustainable brands. And her PR expertise has been praised by companies like Forbes, Fast Company, BuzzFeed, and People. And you guys, she's also worked with a bunch of big brands, to name a few: Nordstrom, Adobe, DreamWorks, Netflix, Google, and HP. That's just a few I pulled from her website. So she's worked with some really amazing companies, and her emphasis now is on female entrepreneurs like all of you listening and like myself. So she lives in Santa Monica, California with her rescue dog, whose name is Chandler Bing, which I think is really cool. If you're a Friends fan, you probably also think that's cool. Yeah, we just go into so many great tips and strategies in today's episode. So without further ado, I've talked long enough. Let's play that interview. Courtney, welcome. You guys, I'm so excited to welcome my friend Courtney to the podcast now. We've literally been talking for like over 25 minutes without recording, so it's time to get into the good stuff. Welcome, Courtney.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me here. I know we said all the gems before you pressed record, Elizabeth.
Yes. Wait, I'm sure you have so many more to share. So you guys, as you read in the description for this episode and probably already heard me say in the intro, we're talking about PR, public relations today. And if you're like myself and many other online businesses, you might not be thinking about PR naturally. Courtney, would you say that's true, that a lot of online businesses aren't really thinking about that as much?
100%. I think that it's something that you sort of know about it, and you might think about it, and you're like, yeah, maybe I should do that, but it's not top of mind.
Yeah. So we want to let Courtney enlighten us on why PR should be more top of mind and not just paid advertising like Facebook ads and things of that nature, but what PR can like bring to your business. And Courtney, I love this little blurb about what you do that you sent me, so I want to read it to people to get a taste. So Courtney is a PR mentor that creates high converting PR strategies to help female entrepreneurs become wildly profitable. So you guys, female entrepreneurs, like you guys listening right now, becoming wildly profitable. That sounds so amazing, right? So, okay, Courtney, now that we got a little bit about you, kick us off. Let's tell everyone how we know each other. I think it's fun to start there.
Yes. Yes. So we know each other IRL in real life. We met in Amber Housley's mastermind a year ago. Yeah. Can you believe that time flies? And
it really was like a year ago right now, actually. I think
yeah.
so, from when we were in Nashville together.
Yes. Love Nashville. And so I was there actually. I had joined, the mastermind because I had launched Who's That Housewife? For anyone listening that loves Bravo or Real Housewives, check it out. It's my creative, just like you, I know, Elizabeth, have a creative Etsy store and other, well, you're creative in everything you do, but another business. I dove full into entrepreneurship with a creative goods business. Who's That Housewife is, think of Heads Up, but in physical form. And I wanted to really figure out, okay, I was able to make this profitable with PR, but I didn't know all of the other marketing type things in terms of a sales page or email marketing and all of these things I had used more as toys and tools in PR because I spent a long time in corporate PR, but I never actually had to execute it myself. And so that is where we met. And it was actually, I think it was around that time, because I remember it was at Inspired Retreat, that I realized that there were all of these amazing leaders and female entrepreneurs that had these way bigger brands and businesses than I did. And they were asking me about my PR wins and advice for a brand partnership that they were doing or, other things of that nature. And it was so surprising to me because I thought, well, if I can do this, you definitely can. And that no one was really having the conversation around public relations, what that can do to really fuel the bottom line of your business. And to me, it's always been such a no-brainer because the cost to entry is free, unlike Facebook ads or some email marketing providers. I mean,
and thinking about that, I would love for you to share about Who's That Housewife and how I think it's so cool that you got it profitable within 30 days and that you were using PR to do that. Because I think that's a great example to showcase like the value of all of this.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yes. So one thing that I want to get really clear is that, yes, I spent almost 2 decades in corporate PR, but when I launched Who's That Housewife, I didn't have any of those fancy tools to use. I didn't have connections. No one can see us right now, but I'm using air quotes in terms of, oh, well, that's easy for her to say because she's a PR person. So she, can just go in her phone and easily blast a few contacts and they'll do that. I was starting just where anyone would start when they're doing a business. And I also had zero experience as an entrepreneur or someone in the physical goods arena. I had 0 followers on social. I didn't have an email list. And I just want to make it clear to everyone, because I think a lot of times when it comes to PR, people think that they need these other things in order to be successful. And I'm living proof that you don't need that.
I love that.
All that you really need is to know your audience and how you can present what it is you're doing to be compelling and something of value. And so that's what I did leading up to, because I was still working full time when I was launching this in my spare time. Whenever I saw an article about something Real Housewives related or related to what I was doing, I would just take their name and save it in notes on my phone or somehow so I was sort of, being aware. And I had this Raggedy Ann Google Doc of people that were either writing about it, or I noticed in their social media profiles, whether they were an influencer or a press person, they were talking about Bravo, and they could be someone that would be of interest to it. And then once my everything was ready to go, because it took about a year. Now, back it up. I did not spend a year on this PR campaign, but I'm just saying from the business owner side with physical products, it took a while to get all the pieces assembled together. But once I was able to have a website up so that I felt more confident when I was sending emails that I could hyperlink so they could see, this is a real thing, because I was selling it on my own website. It wasn't in any stores. I sent them an email, and a very playful one, and it landed because I knew exactly who I was talking to. I think the subject line was ready for turtle time, and then their name, which if anyone's watching Real Housewives, they will understand that. So it goes back to speaking into their language. And then I also approached influencers the same way. And I just want to say all of this was unpaid because I didn't have any money to spend on marketing, and the money that I did have, I would have to put towards shipping costs if they, were willing to review the game or something like that.
That's amazing. And it's so cool starting with no email list, no following for the brand. And then I love what you said about the emails working because you knew who you were talking to, because you did the prep work of actually seeing like, okay, these are the right people, not just random cold pitching and that kind of thing. That's awesome.
Yes. I love the way actually that you said it. A lot of it has to do with the prep work ahead of time. You can call that a strategy, whatever it might be, because then the way that I compare it is it's the difference between throwing spaghetti up a wall and seeing what sticks, or throwing darts when it comes to the precision in what you're doing. And
that's a good way to put it. I like that.
I'm a visual learner. So that's, and I think that that's something that anyone can apply to when they're getting started in, with PR, or if the word PR is too intimidating to you, then you can just talk about, raising your visibility. And the reason why, because then I know that everyone wants to hear about, their tips, but just to dig a little bit deeper, the reason why the various PR wins were able to make my business profitable within 30 days was because I was leveraging their audience to be a loudspeaker for my brand. And we talk about social media and wanting to throw yourself in front of traffic, meaning be where people already are. And PR is that. And it's if you're thinking of it like a party, public relations is the OG in terms of parties because it's been around for so long. And all of these, when we're talking about the media side, we're talking about companies that have been around, some of them for over 100 years, and they've invested millions, if not billions, into building those brands and to really honing those audiences. And so when you are a part of that and they're deciding to shine a light on you, then the people that read about you or your brand, whether it's through an influencer, whoever it may be, they automatically think, I trust this person more. I want, what it is that they have to offer. And it also helps with SEO and people being able to find you because Google prioritizes links. I'm getting really nerdy here, but
I love SEO. I actually want to talk about SEO at the end of this because I have some thoughts on that too, from the way PR helps boost that so much.
Yay, that's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, we need to talk about that too. Yeah, but the whole idea of what you're saying that PR can't be bought, which makes it more meaningful, or at the very least meaningful in a different way than when someone sees a Facebook ad from you. So it's like good to do stuff like that, but also like good to put your energy and effort into PR as well. And I love how what you're teaching us is like as little as 10 minutes a day. Like this does not have to be like all of a sudden you quit your business and you're only focusing on this. It's like, no, this is something super attainable and something I'm going to start implementing too. Like I'm literally ready to take notes and do everything you tell me to do, Courtney. So I'm ready.
Yay. Yes. No, I thank you so much, because I do think that sometimes people feel it's overwhelming in their minds. Like it just seems that there's a block there for some reason. And I think you could do that with anything, right? I'm sure that if you talk to a Facebook ads manager, that's their whole job, right? You could go very, very deep on that. But I'm all about efficiency. And in order to get the results that's going to help boost your brand and your bottom line, you can do it in as little as 10 minutes a day. It's not that difficult. And you're right. I think that if you are putting stuff out on social media, which I think everyone who's listening to this is in some way or another, if you are emailing your list, if you are blogging, then PR can easily plug in to what it is that you are already doing. And it's going to get you so much farther than, say, a Facebook ad or a webinar or a funnel, because the results live for like forever. Like once you're, one of Fast Company's most creative people, no one can ever take that away from you. Like you have that accolade. Anyway, that was a very lofty example, but it carries with you in whatever it is that you do. So
true.
Yeah. So I think a great way for everyone to get started with this is to think about your business goals, because not all PR opportunities are created equal. And you want your PR to be a business driver with you at the steering wheel. So I can give you an example, if that would be helpful, as sort of like to put this into context. So
do you want to do an example as a photographer maybe?
Yeah.
What they would do?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So like a local photographer in Nashville?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Yes. So let's say that I am a local photographer in Nashville, and that my goal is that I want to get more local families as clients. That's my business goal. That's what I know is really going to help grow my bottom line. Then if I were to say that my PR goal were to speak at Create and Cultivate, that wouldn't be a fit because the local families, my audience and clients, they're not going to be at Create and Cultivate. And so I think that that's where sometimes when people think about PR, they think about sexy, and all PR is sexy, by the way. Okay. Like you know what I think is sexy? I think making money in your business is sexy. Okay.
Very true.
Right. She is gorgeous. Okay. But I think sometimes people think Today Show, Oprah Magazine, USA Today. And yes, those are great. But I can tell you from experience, if it's different now because we're all at home, but for the most part, if your target demo isn't someone who watches late afternoon TV, then being on there isn't really going to help your bottom line. So in the case of our, photographer, looking at places where their audience is and what influences them, you're going to make sure that your PR opportunities are aligned with that. I will say the caveat to that is if it's not something that directly influences them, it's something that in their minds they would see as credible.
Yes. I literally was just thinking that like you having been featured in, like, let's say as a photographer, some online magazine that isn't directly tied to Nashville, but that is showing you credibility as a photographer, that also carries like a lot of weight. To have that, even like the logo on your website of like featured on, this magazine, that sort of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
That it's something that is going to yeah, help them. Or let's say if there is sometimes it's like if there's a special training or something, right, that would make them more credible, more of an authority, and more someone that they feel they can trust with their business and their brand.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. So first big tip, starting with your business goals and knowing that like where you're going to make your goal PR wise needs to relate to the overall goal so that you're not wasting time and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. No, when clients come to me and they say, oh, I've gotten some PR wins before, but they didn't really do much to my business. That's the first thing that I ask, because PR isn't something that sits in this separate silo. It's something that goes through everything. I always say like PR isn't created, it's curated, meaning that well, I love an alliteration. But yeah, it's not something you default to. It really is something that you do by design. And so once you know your business goal and your audience, and this is something that I'm the first one to raise my hand and say I didn't do this at first. And so now I am the poster child in that you want to do this. Like even a PR pro like me doesn't always know best. So you really want to find out who influences your audience. And if you don't have an audience yet, because I didn't have an audience when I started, there's a lot of other ways for you to do that. You can go into Facebook groups that are on topic and ask or just search for that word. Let's say if you're like a fitness person, to type that in. You can go, for me, I went to Reddit forums because there's a lot of Reddit forums that are very active with Bravo fans. You can ask on your stories, your profile page, your email list, just because a lot of times, and I thought I was an expert in Real Housewives, but I actually asked someone in a Facebook group and she recommended to me an influencer and 2 podcasts. And I thought I was the podcast queen over here. And that podcast that she ended up recommending to me that wasn't on my radar ended up being my most profitable conversion in terms of getting people into my business. And I would have never known about it if I didn't ask the question. So I'm saying that the worst thing that could happen is you're going to confirm what you think you already know. But I'm telling you, most of the time, you're going to get some new names and some new places to, put on your PR radar.
That's awesome. So finding who influences the audience. And then what do you do once you have who influences them?
You start to Nancy Drew them in a nice way. So a really easy thing is I think you subscribe to their email lists if they have them. And I will say even individual press people, a lot of the time, they like to build up their own brand. And there's even verticals like BuzzFeed, for example, there's a lot of different verticals depending on what topic it is that you are interested. So, subscribe to their podcasts. You can subscribe to their email lists and their podcasts if they have podcasts, and to start showing that you are consuming their content. So the first step, subscribing to their email list, following them. I will say, and I don't think anyone who's listening to this podcast would do that, but if someone has a private profile, I wouldn't request to follow them.
Yeah.
Because we're all about, being classy and elegant in our approach, not being creepy.
Yes.
So that's the only line I would say. But I mean, even on LinkedIn, so right now, LinkedIn Live is a new feature that is being rolled out. And a lot of influencers and press people tend to have that. And you can follow them and still get those alerts. You don't have to ask to be a connection if you don't know them yet. And one little secret tip I'll give everyone is, I know that when you hear Twitter, you might think, oh, Courtney, I do not need another social platform to be on. I already got too many going on. Like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around PR. But I will say, this was a recent stat that came out. 86% of all media are on Twitter. And you don't even have to do anything on it. But a great thing that they have, to go back to the 10 minutes a day, is that you can build private lists that no one can see but you. And so what you can do is you can start putting together, right, your targets and have that Twitter list. And then you can just log on and you can easily see, okay, what are they writing about? What are they interested in? It's just a consolidated place to have that. And so I think that when you start to interact or like greasing the skids with people, it's a really easy way to sort of start that process, because you don't need to write paragraphs when you're interacting with them. It can be as easy as you're listening to their podcast or reading their article, you screenshot it, you tag them, and you write a little line and you put it into your story for that day.
Yeah.
It's very little, but it, just sort of start showing up as the leader and the person that you are. So you get to be on their radar and they know you as, oh, like this person is interested in what I'm saying. It goes back to showing versus telling.
I love that. And it's so true that like, it's basically, I mean, you're talking about like relationship building really, of like when you're thinking about asking them like, pitching yourself to be on their podcast or to be in an article or on some sort of list, if it's like you've never interacted with them before, that's going to be a lot harder than when, let's say they're a podcaster and you comment on their post and you follow them and you share about the podcast and you've left a review. They're probably going to recognize your name from all of those things happening. I know that's true for me, of like, there are people who listen and share this show who I like know who they are because of that.
Yes, exactly. I think that especially now, I mean, Elizabeth, we were talking about this before we pressed record about how many people pitch you to be on your podcast. And that it's very clear from some of them that come through, even though they might say, oh, I love your podcast, I listen to it all the time. So this is really a way of showing, like putting your I don't know if the analogy your money where your mouth is works, but you really are showing them like, hey, I read your stuff and I thought this was interesting. They already know that, right? Even if you're saying that, because you have started to show up in a non-creepy, helpful way to interact and engage with their content. And so, like, bottom line, they will be way more likely to acknowledge you and reply to you, even if on your first go around, you might not get the green light. The way that I look at feedback from press, journalists, or even influencers is it's free advice. And it really helps you tailor and refine your messaging. So, and I look at it as, even when I might not hear back or I get a no, I just channel Cher Horowitz from Clueless. And I just think it's a jumping off point to start negotiations. and that ask for feedback as to like what could I change, or what would make this more appealing to you, or just really like be in conversation with them.
Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Yeah, I think that's so true. And the way you said it before we started recording, stranger danger of like, if someone's like completely a stranger to you, and that person is getting a lot of emails asking for similar things, they're first of all less likely to respond, but also less likely to say yes. What I was telling you is that with my podcast, one thing that would happen early on, it still happens, but it was more interesting early on. I would have people email me pitching someone to be on the podcast, either themselves or someone they were representing. And they would say, I love all of your guest interviews. And I had not had a single guest interview. So it was like right away, I'm like, you didn't listen or you would know that there hasn't been a guest. It's just little things like that where it's like trying to craft a pitch that sounds genuine, but because it's like a template, I guess, that they're working with, but because it's actually not genuine, they haven't really checked it out. I can tell that it's not.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. And that's something that I do before I pitch anyone. Like if that person were to go back and maybe they were to say, hey, I know that you haven't had any guests on yet, but is that something that you're considering for the future? If you are, I have this person, or I noticed that you did an episode on SEO, and here are some other points if you want to dig deeper into that topic.
Yeah.
Like it goes back to basically think about everything that you have learned about serving your audience, your clients, or your customers. When you look at PR, it's just a different audience, and you just need to think about how can you build those relationships, how can you serve them, and how can you provide value.
I love that. Yeah. And providing value, that's such a good thing to focus on, of like when you're thinking about like pitching yourself to someone, that it's not what they can do for you, but what you can do for them and their audience, even though it's obvious how you're going to get something out of it. You know what I mean? But like maybe focusing more heavily on what they get out of it and their audience gets out of it is going to be huge.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is the time. You really need to come at it from their perspective, like what's going to help them. Like going back to Who's That Housewife, or for people who are just starting, really lead. Like this is a mistake a lot of times people make, is that they feel, okay, first I need to tell them about all of my accomplishments, so then they'll read down. But I'm telling you, these people get pitched from like Nobel Prize winners. So truth. So what you need to do is you need to get them interested. You need to say like what it is that you have, because what is going to make them listen and be intrigued is if you're providing that value off the bat, and then they actually care less about how long you've been in business, or, hey, I hadn't sold one thing when I was pitching, this game that their audience, was just going to love. Right. Yeah. Like I didn't have that. So I really had to focus on, this is why this new experience that I'm providing for someone just like you, like these are your frustrations, and oh my gosh, there's this awesome thing. And this is what makes it even, more great, or this is why your audience will care about it.
I love that. Okay, well, let's go to the next tip. What's your next tip for us for PR every day?
Yes. So I think now that we have our people, we're looking at them and we're starting to interact with them, I think that you need to think about how you are going to pitch them, right? Because you've sort of like greased the skids, you know them, they know you. And because you're interacting with them, or even like you said, just listening to their podcast, you're going to have a better idea about what works and what clicks. And so I think where a lot of times people get stuck is that they are asking themselves, well, is this interesting enough? And I want to tell everyone to reframe that, because that is not where we want to focus our energy. What we want to be thinking about is, what is it that you can say or you can provide that is relevant to that audience? And by looking at it that way and taking a step back, that means that it doesn't have to be pitching what it is that you do. It could be that you read something and you had an idea for something else. Just shoot them a note that says that. It doesn't need to be this big laborious type thing. Just start to sort of get them in conversation. I mean, no one is ever going to be upset that you tried to help them or provide value.
So focusing on what you can provide that's relevant to their audience when you are thinking about a pitch.
Yeah, or just if you feel that you started to engage with them in some way outside of sending them a pitch, then to think about it from 1,000-foot perspective, and what is it that you can do that can provide value. And it is okay if that doesn't come from your brand directly, because just like we were talking about stranger danger before, people want to help people they like. So if you are, they'll naturally be interested in what it is that you do. So if you're really providing something to them that's going to help their audience, whether it's a tip or an idea or something like that, then they're not just going to be like, okay, thanks, bye. They're going to want to, continue that. And so I think that just thinking critically about what it is that you are offering them, and think about what it is that you read or listen to, or what it is that they post, and if it feels that it is in line with that. So it's sort of taking a step outside yourself and really thinking about it from their perspective, or ultimately the audience's perspective. Because one thing that I learned in my PR agency days early on is that no one wants to hear that they have an ugly baby, meaning that everyone feels that their business and what they do is so interesting and fascinating that everything I do is awesome. And that is true. But it goes back to, you can sort of take that litmus test of like, is this something that my family would find interesting? My aunt and uncle, or is this something that from the outside world, this will provide value to others?
Yeah, I love that. Can you give an example of like what would be, meaning a lot in the big picture for PR versus like what is not something that would? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I just want to be as encouraging as possible to everyone who's listening. So I'll give an example, because I know that this is going to be coming out soon. So an example that wouldn't necessarily be that interesting would be, we're giving everyone in our company $50 to spend on Postmates. Okay. That is nice that you're doing that. And that's great. But that isn't a story. That's just chest beating, right? Like, Tarzan. And that's more promotional. But if you were to reframe that, or to talk about how you are able to help, like sort of what your company is doing differently and the things that you learned from it, and how other companies can apply that to their business, that's something that you would want to read, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I think it's just that shift of, I'm talking about the same company or the same person here, but it's sort of just like there's the pyramid of news factors, and it's more about like, how is this helping inform or entertain or delight their audience. Is that helpful? Because I know I am a PR nerd. So to me, it's just like you in design, it's just so glaringly obvious.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I mean, yeah, and what you just said of like informing and delighting. What was the other word you said?
Entertaining.
Entertaining. Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to frame it of like, can it do those types of things, or is it just self-serving to you or not that interesting? Or it might not feel that interesting to you because it's all you know, but it is an interesting story overall. Like I know for so many of you guys listening, the story of how you started your business is interesting.
Yes.
And something that someone could want to interview you on a podcast about or write an article about. So that's something to think about of like, you might think it's not that interesting anymore because it's like all you know, but it is.
It is so interesting. And I want to encourage everyone who's listening to this to start to get your story out there, because I have a lot of editor and producer and journalist and influencer friends just from being in the biz, and they are tired of telling the same stories over and over, right? Those big behemoth companies that hire PR teams and that are constantly pitching them. Like one of the greatest things that they get to do in their careers is to tell stories that haven't been told before. That is exciting to them. And the work that all of us are doing, especially right now, it is so special and so meaningful, and especially as women. I say it all the time, but like PR and media outreach, it's not something that you do after you're known for your work. It's how you get known in the first place to bring more of those people, you know, towards you and to shine even brighter than you already are.
That's very encouraging.
I mean it.
All right, Courtney, this has been amazing. So, okay, we just went through a lot of tips. We still have 2 more big things we're going to talk about. But will you recap the like overarching tip to everyone so they can like know, okay, what's my strategy every day for PR?
Yes, your done for you PR strategy. Here we go. So number 1, you're going to start with your business goals. And you're going to look at what your business goals are for right now, like this quarter, next 6 months. And you're going to make sure that your PR goal is aligned with that, so that anything you're doing for PR is going to help fuel your bottom line. Number 2, you're going to find out who influences your audience. And we talked about how you can do that a lot of different ways in terms of asking, looking, etc. Number 3, once you find out who influences with your audience, you're going to start lightly engaging with them, meaning you're subscribing to their email lists, you are seeing where they are at on the World Wide Web, and you're starting to show them that you are consuming their content and you aren't just double tapping, you're actually engaging with them, showing up like the cheerful, engaged, helpful leader that you are. Number 4, now that you know who they are and you're starting to consume their content, you're going to start engaging with them. And that can be through sending them a DM about an idea that you have for something, but it can really run the gamut in terms of how comfortable you are with engaging with them in a little bit more direct and meaningful way. And number 5 is to make sure that once you are on their radar, that you have an aesthetic and a home online that matches what it is that you are presenting to them.
Yeah, let's talk about that of like, I know you said, again, we talked for like 25 minutes before we started recording, but Courtney was saying that press kits are very 90s in a bad way, but websites are like the new press kit. So can you talk about that?
Yes. So I might date myself a little bit, but it's okay. So before, yes, there was email when I started in PR, but faxes were still a thing. And press kits came about when we didn't have email and you actually had to mail out kits to people. with your photos and your fact sheets and your one pagers and all of those things. And so press kits still exist for large companies, meaning places where, like when I worked in-house at entertainment studios, I would have to have someone on my team go and tell them they use the wrong logo. Please direct them to our press kit. Little nuances like that. But nowadays, your press kit is a living, breathing thing. And that is your website. And so it's, rather than having this PDF or this keynote or PowerPoint that sort of lives in this closet, you want to make sure that who you are is represented on there, because the first thing that they are going to do is to type you into Google or click the link in your signature. And for example, if you are talking about how cutting edge you are, and they're going to a website that does not match what it is that you're putting in front of them, they're going to do a little in terms of, is this a credible person as I think they are? And one tip that I have for everyone who's reading this is that, in terms of how to really make their website or press kit a magnet for press, is to make it easy for them. So one little thing that all of you guys can do, if you don't already, I know that we all love contact forms, but just have something that says for press and put your email on there. I can guarantee you're not going to worry about spammers. Like that isn't going to be the case, but they need to know, like, they're very, very busy people. So going back to like what we talked about in terms of serving them information, you want to make sure that you are serving them, you and your brand and your business, in the cleanest, most efficient way possible.
Yeah, I love that. And you guys, you've probably heard me say 1,000 times on the podcast that you need to have an email on your website, not just a contact form. And literally what Courtney said is one of the huge reasons why, because when you're, let's say, a photographer and your contact form is super specific to someone booking you for a wedding, but someone is reaching out to you for a press reason, they do not want to fill out that form. They want to email you. So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Amen. And a lot of times on forms, because I've even seen this when I've gone on, I was actually just on a website last night for a client and looking them up about how I can get in touch with them for a PR reason. And all the reasons listed, they didn't have an email and none of them matched up. Like, I didn't want to hire them to speak at my event. I didn't want to book them for a wedding. So that is really important. And four quick questions that they can ask themselves is like, can the information be found and can it be found quickly? Are there any visuals that go with what it is that you're pitching or what it is that you're doing? And I'm not saying you don't need to have a big false thing. You don't need to have high-res images that they can download. You just need to make sure that the images that are on your site are representative of who you are or who your brand is, that there's matching there, and that you're telling your company story in a way that is digestible to press, meaning that it's not full of buzzwords and marketing jargon.
Yeah. I love all that. That's great website advice. And guys, Courtney uses one of the M-Shop templates for her new site. So that's really fun.
Yes, I do. Elizabeth has converted me into a Show It fanatic.
I love it. That is awesome. Okay, wait, let's talk about, before we close out, I know we've been talking a while, but I want people to hear about just your thoughts on how SEO, like how PR can impact your SEO impact.
Oh my goodness. So many ways. So one huge thing that I think a lot of people, and I'm sure you've seen this from the podcast, Elizabeth, is that Google and SEO, search engine optimization, when they crawl pages or sites and they decide like what exists on page 1 of Google, they give a much higher ranking to sites that are considered news or blogs than your own. And so when you have those Google backlinks that are pointing to either your website or your Etsy store or your like it's something that is affiliated with you, when people go to search for Google, those results are going to be like prioritized and higher, and it's going to help give your website a lot more credibility. And that, I think, is a huge reason why if you're comparing PR to advertising, I'm like, there is no comparison, because you don't get those with advertising. And as soon as you stop paying for the campaign, that stuff goes away. With like PR, those links just get richer and richer over time. And you can see it on the back end in terms of what is driving traffic to your site. And to get super nerdy with it, you can even look at conversions in terms of how much more that type of traffic is signing up for your email list, buying your product, whatever it is that you offer.
So true. And you guys, I want to point you to, well, first I have two things. I want to point you to one thing, neilpatel.com. We'll put that in the show notes, but it's a site where you can like check your SEO rankings, what top pages you have, an overview, your domain score and things like that. And I look at it periodically for my site. But Courtney, I thought of this because last week I was checking out my domain score and like backlinks and all of that. And I've been mentioned, so not an article focused on me, but mentioned twice on median.com, which is a news outlet, I guess is the best way to describe it. And just mentioned in like one of them was tips for life coaches, and they referenced something in one of my blog posts. And the other one was like 5 brands to follow or business women or something like that. And both of those had increased my domain score just because median.com is like a well-known website, credible, all of that sort of thing. But in addition to that, sites where people who have bought templates from me do a blog post about their site launch and link back to my site, all of it matters for SEO power. So thinking about like, something like getting on Medium or Forbes or whatever is super valuable, but also like a fellow entrepreneur friend who wants to feature you on their blog is also really valuable.
Yes, incredibly valuable. In fact, I just did a Facebook Live video about that yesterday, about how it's not always press when it comes to PR. It's that third-party credibility. And so the more sources that you can have that are pointing towards you as an entrepreneur, an authority in your space, someone to go to, the better. Like both from a personal standpoint, personally, meaning you're getting those nods, but also from an SEO techie standpoint, because that is showing that when someone types in, like in your case, like show it web designer or, designer for coaches or something like that, you're going to be on a lot higher in the rankings because of those PR wins that are pointing towards your brand.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So that's something to think about. PR, SEO, they go together. I love that. Well, thank you, Courtney. This has been, I know I took more of your time than we said. We just said 30 minutes, but we got a lot of good stuff in here. So thank you for taking the time to educate us all on PR stuff. Okay, to close this out, I want to ask you 3 rapid fire questions that are personal so people can get to know you a little bit. And then I want you to tell everyone where they can find you and all of that good stuff. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. First one, what is a book you would recommend to everyone listening?
A book that I would recommend to everyone is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It's the disciplined pursuit of less. And don't worry, it's not about minimalism and living in a White House, but it's really, I'm all about efficiency. And so this book is really great at sort of like cutting to the core of what it is that you're doing in all aspects of your life and how you can make it as meaningful and as valuable as possible.
Okay, next question. I think I know the answer to this, but favorite TV show?
Well, my dog's name is Chandler Bing. So I would
Yes,
say
which
that
I think that's so fun. I love
yes.
that.
So I would say Friends because it just always makes me happy. And especially right now, I think we can laugh about this, but every time someone says the word pivot, all I can think about is that
Yep.
episode and pivot, pivot.
Yeah. Friends is my favorite show too, probably. Okay, well, last rapid fire question. Favorite brand you've worked with back in your like corporate days or now, either way.
You know, I started my career at Nordstrom. And
Mm.
one thing that has stuck with me so much is that we always hear about their level of customer service in terms of when you think about the brand pillar and what it is that they want to be known for, it's exceptional customer service, right? Like that, if you could get the same product at a different store, you know that if you go to Nordstrom, you're going to have this wonderful experience. And I will say that they were a company, they were at least when I worked there, that it was the same thing to the employees that work there. Like they brought that level of like service and really delighting to the people that, worked being an employee and part of that. And I was very, very early in my career. So I wasn't this SVP corner office type,
Yeah.
I was the lowest on the totem pole. And so that has just really stuck with me in terms of thinking about it from the customer's perspective and also the people that you have internally. Because to me, that's like what a true brand is. I've worked
Yeah.
at some places where they said we only do A+ client service, but then when it came internally, they would say, well, we're giving you C benefits, right? And so
Mm,
in my thing, I'm like, that's a mismatch. You can't say we're exceptional, but then when it comes to our employees, we treat you average.
absolutely. That's awesome. I love Nordstrom, so that's fun.
Me too. Yes, I love Nordstrom. And one thing, Elizabeth, that I just think is so important to say is that right now in the media landscape, everything that press and journalists were planning on covering has been canceled. So, sports, film releases, everything. And because of that, there is this ginormous opportunity right now of white space to jump in there and to get your story told. Like we are living in unprecedented times, and it is the same thing when it comes to PR. Like I had a Today Show person email me late last night just saying, hey, I don't even know if you have any clients for this, but I really need some people in the health and beauty for this segment. Like, do you know
Wow.
anyone? Um,
Yeah.
so I just really want to be encouraging to everyone that if you're cautious about, well, I don't know if this is the right time or anything like that, I'm telling you, like, they are hungry to hear
Mm,
from your stories, especially things that aren't related to everything else that is happening right now with the pandemic, because no news source can cover that 24/7. And the entrepreneurs and the people that are really making a difference right now, those are the stories that they want to hear about.
mm. I love that. That really is encouraging and such a good point of, yeah, everything's shifting there right now.
Yeah. So there is so like I feel like I know we talked about this before on the call, that like some people are just like, now is the time. And maybe they're sort of like using fear tactics or anything like that. And I'm all about sunshine and positivity. And I really want it to come across that this is like now, like, strike while the iron is hot. This is such a great time for everyone to, if you haven't done PR before, like, now is the perfect time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Courtney. Okay, you guys, Courtney, tell everyone where they can find you, follow along with you, get more resources from you, all of that.
Yes. So they can find me at CourtneyLoveGavin.com. And I am at Courtney Love Gavin on all of the socials. And I actually
Mhm.
have a free gift workbook for all of the Breakthrough Brand listeners. And so if they go to my website, Courtney Love Gavin, Courtney with a C, CourtneyLoveGavin.com/Elizabeth, they will find it for them right there. And it is a awesome workbook that I put together that walks through the 5 steps to getting started with your PR in 10 minutes a day. And there's also like room. I feel like a workbook is so old school to call it that, but there's room for you to write and prompts so you can sort of like work through this and have your done for you PR strategy mapped out.
Awesome. You guys, I'm going to be putting that link in the show notes, and I will also be downloading it and going through the guide alongside you guys.
Yes.
So definitely go get that from Courtney. Thank you so much for being on. This was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.